hands together. Oh, we shall someday we shall overcome. Somebody saying we shall overcome someday. Yeah. Oh, deep in my heart, oh, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Well, we shall overcome. Somebody saying we shall.
You tuned in to another live broadcast of the Rainbow Push Coalition. We are live here in Chicago, Dr. King's workshop. Listen, you still have time to get here. We're kneeling for justice. We're kneeling for freedom. Call somebody, tweet somebody, let them know that the push is still on.
Overcome. Oh, we shall overcome. Somebody sing. Overcome someday. Well, deep in my heart, oh, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Let it ring that we shall overcome. Somebody sing that we shall overcome. Oh, let it ring that we shall overcome someday. Well, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
Come on, make some noise, make some noise. We are live all over the world. Call somebody, text somebody, tweet somebody, let them know that the push is on today. Call us right now, 773-256-2775, 773-256-2775. Our founder, our president, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. is here, and he wants to hear from you today. We are live right now on the Impact Network. We are live right now, WVON AM 1690 and iHeartRadio, and we are streaming live right now at rainbowpush.org. We're grateful to each and every one of you who tune in each and every week in your homes, your automobiles, your places of business. Wherever you're kind enough to tune in, we thank God for you. To our international audience, those of you who are watching us right now in Brazil, the United Kingdom, Egypt, in Australia, in Canada, we thank God for you. To our friends who are watching us right here in the United States, especially in our satellite cities of New York, Washington, D.C., Detroit, Atlanta, and Silicon Valley, we love you, and we thank God for you. Come on, can we give a big round of applause to all of our viewers who are watching us right now? Listen, we want to dedicate this broadcast to the following families: the family of Sister Lottie Muhammad, daughter of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. She made her transition. We are praying for the Muhammad family today. And also we are praying for Mr. Marvel Cheeks Jr., who was the father of former Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick. He made his transition. He's being funeralized today at the age of 98. So we are keeping those families in our thoughts and prayers at this time. Listen, there's so much happening here at Rainbow Push. One is the birthday of our founder and our president, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. October 8th, we are going to celebrate, and so the whole world will celebrate the day a giant entered the world. He will be 76 years young. We're excited about it, and we're going to be celebrating the month of October all the way to the end of the year in December, our anniversary month. So please pay attention to more announcements coming your way. There'll be a special right here on the Impact Network the entire month of October, celebrating the life, legacy, and message of our founder and president, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. Listen, we have a Freedom Store here at Rainbow Push, a Freedom Store. It's open every Saturday. Every Saturday, you can purchase books, T-shirts, and other paraphernalia right here, 50th and Drexel, every Saturday morning and afternoon, and every Thursday night. Listen, you can follow Reverend Jackson right now on Twitter at Rev J Jackson. You can like him on Facebook, on his official Facebook page, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. Tomorrow morning, make sure you not only listen, but you call in to Keep Hope Alive Radio. Keep Hope Alive Radio, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here, WVON, AM 1690 and iHeartRadio. And you can go to keephopealiveradio.com for more information. Listen, after this selection, we'll hear from Brother Mahan one more time. After that, the next speaking voice you will hear will be that of our founder, our president, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. As he comes, don't turn that down. We have a special panel for you today about kneeling for justice. But in the meantime, let's hear from Brother Mahan.
We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in His holy word. He's never failed me yet, singing, can't turn around now. We come this far by faith. We come this far by faith. Oh Lord, we're leaning on the Lord. Ooh, we're trusting in His holy word. He's never failed me yet. No, 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 no. Singing, we can't turn around now, 'cause we come this far by faith. Oh, we come through the trials, tribulations. Oh, we come. Hey. And we still trusting, yeah. Just because He's never failed me yet. No, 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 no. Oh, singing, just because by faith. So we're just leaning, trusting, and keep leaning, believing, holding on, yeah. Trusting. Oh, we're leaning on His word. He never failed us yet. We come this far by faith. Leaning on. And we'll still, just because He never failed.
Somebody, respect me, protect me, never neglect me. My mind is a pearl. I can learn anything in the world. Stop the violence, save the children, never surrender. Keep hope alive, never surrender. Keep hope alive. I am God's child. Forward ever, backward never. Forward ever, backward never. Let me hear you scream. We have a lot of ground to cover today. One, I want to express my thanks to so much work by so many people. One, young man is outstanding. He may be the most foremost educator in our urban America today that I work with. I want to express my thanks to him and support for his continued growth. Brandon, please stand. Give Brandon a big hand. I want our panel to come up. Jonathan Jackson, give it up for Jonathan. Come on, Jonathan. Will Hall, Evan Moore, Dana London, ACLU, Ed Young from ACLU, Clyde Travis, retired journalist. Give them a big hand. If you're ready, come and get a little of this. Come on up here. Put your hand together, guys. We pray especially today for our friends at brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. Give them your sincere prayers. Show your hands for Puerto Rico and their support. And the Virgin Islands, and Martinique, and Guadeloupe, throughout the Caribbean. Give all of them a big hand. We stand with them today. Now, while Mr. Trump should be focused on getting helicopters and food distribution and telecommunications to that area, he's focusing on trying to disgrace athletes. He is off of the agenda. Our focus in some sense is, my friends, October 16th is the last day of voter registration in Virginia. The 17th is the last day of registration in New Jersey. We must register in October to vote in November. When it's all said and done, fight back with your vote. Fight back with your vote. Fight back with your vote. I also want to pay a special tribute today to Hugh Hefner. Back in the day, when the lines were drawn so sharply, it was Hugh Hefner that hosted Dick Gregory and Godfrey Cambridge and Bill Cosby, so many others. We used to have fundraisers at his home here in Chicago, Urban League and NAA and Nancy Jefferson. All of us were able to have that relationship. When the beating took place at the 6/8 March, he was down there. Guy hit himself. Let's give a big hand to Hugh Hefner. You think? Oh, put your hand together for him. I want to ask you a question, guys, ladies. Big controversy about Colin Kaepernick. I want people to hear us discuss this thing. He knelt down discussing racial disparity, if you're ready. And Trump said it was about dishonoring the flag. How do you read the Colin Kaepernick controversy, if you're ready?
What I see coming out of Trump right now, anything he says or anything he tweets cannot be believed. And I mean, especially from the issue that he started a week ago on, that he got into an argument with the owners and not with the players. And at this point, I think we have to stand up in solidarity, everybody, on what he's doing and how he's made the difference, because the message of why people were kneeling has gotten confused with the politics of who he is instead of what we're doing.
Travis, you were a writer sometime, a sports writer for 35 years. How do you read the impact of the state of the issue around Colin Kaepernick?
Sometimes you could just cut to the chase and just say ditto. But really, Kaepernick has been used as a lightning rod for social injustice today. He is the guy. You know, whether it's by choice or whether it's by design, he has sparked a fervent debate about the social injustices in this country. And he's pulled the wool off. He has made people choose sides, where they want to be, address the issue. And because sports has always been used this way, you can't hide it.
Always?
It's all, well, we can go back to 1980 when then President Carter chose to boycott the Summer Olympics. We can go back to 72 with 68 with John Carlos and Tommy Smith. You can just pick certain athletes.
Down through the years. Yeah, from an ACLU point of view, Trump suggests that the owners should fire the SOBs. Can he fire somebody on this basis?
I think that's really one of the most dangerous things, Reverend, is the President of the United States, first of all, called somebody a name for protesting, for expressing themselves about issues of concern. I think the second thing is that he called for people to be fired if they didn't engage in a kind of a forced patriotism, which is so out of keeping with what the vision of our country is, it's not even funny. But I think there's a third thing, and by the way, yesterday, you know, he repeated again you've got to respect the flag, you've got to respect the flag, you've got to respect the anthem, that's what we do. No, we don't. This is, you know, I mean, first of all, this is a guy who ran for office saying America was awful, and now he doesn't like when people point out there are problems. But I think the third thing is, and I think this is the really critical issue, is that the other thing that he's done, and I think it's been expressed here already, is he's attempted to change what the protest is about. And this is an old trick. We've seen this for generations, that part of what government does when they don't like speech is try to change what the speech is about. And we simply cannot permit that to be. And you look at high school football players all across this country last night and today taking a knee in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick to actually focus on what the issues are and say that the President of the United States cannot bully them. We need more of that. We don't need less.
Evan, award-winning journalist, let me raise a question with you, Evan. Several times Trump did not put his hand on his heart. His wife had to remind him, but if that's the symbol, what's driving Trump's madness?
Well, I think in journalism and sports fandom as a whole, where it's basically white, male, and suburban, and there comes the realization that black athletes are indeed black people like the rest of us, and they don't know how to handle it, and we're seeing what he's saying and what other folks are saying, and that's kind of where it goes from there, whereas they're trying to all lives matter, the message, like they're trying to take out why Colin was kneeling in the first place, instead of looking into why you're kneeling, the stuff that's going along in the country, and it goes into, you know, if a part of our population doesn't respect the flag, you have to look to why that is. It's history. It's history. That because it wasn't in their history books where they grew up doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Let me raise this point with you, and I'm going to make rounds first. But he has never urged anybody to take a Confederate flag out of one of his rallies. Confederate flag would be like at a German rally flying a swastika. And yet the Confederate flag does not offend him. Now those who flew the Confederate flag are not loving the American flag.
Reverend, we're dealing with people who want us to play by their rules, and they don't play by the rules themselves. So it's basically who we're dealing with, whereas they want us to do, after Charlottesville, they wanted to do both sides. Well, I'm not hugging it out with people that want to kill us. No, we shouldn't be doing that. So
Dana, on tomorrow, there'll be protests of sorts. Most of them seem to have accommodated, but we're going on our knees before the song and hold our hands afterwards. How do you read that as a sports analyst?
Well, for years, I mean, as a community, we've complained when our black athletes haven't stood up for different issues. I mean, it was, where was Michael Jordan during the whatever? And so now, when people are being more vocal, and then now it's an issue with everyone else. Before it was an issue with us. So now part of us, as you said, is being reminded that not only are they black athletes, they're black people. And so we're exercising rights as black people. So tomorrow, you know, there are people who are boycotting the NFL, you know, blackout. And then there are people who are saying, no, I'm gonna tune in, but I'm gonna still represent my people, not just play your game, because I've often looked at sports, it's like a game of Monopoly. While the athlete is playing, they get the money, the property, and then when the game is over, all the money and the property goes back in the box for the next set of people. So finally, people are starting to stand up and say, I'm gonna use this voice for good so that I can do what I need to do once this game is done.
Will, do you think that the insulting statement by Trump took this to another level? See, our hashtag was, our mothers are not bitches who produce thugs, they are women who produce queens, who produce kings. And so we're not gonna let Trump get away with
the grand insult seems to trigger another dimension of this struggle.
Absolutely, Reverend. I think that, first of all, thank you for making space for us young folks on a platform like this. I think that not only what he said was disrespectful, not only was it an insult to women, because without women there's no humanity. Women are the life source. And so I think that not only did he take an attack on the human race, but he took an attack on what makes life possible, which is women. And I think that as a pastor, and as we look at the next generation of pastors in the church, when we take a knee, the question is, what God are we praying to? Because the same God, if we go back in history, that was in the castle, in the chapel above the slave castle, was not the same God that was in the dungeon. And I think that what we have to do is not only identify the pain and identify the problems that this president is causing, but we must take our faith into action. We must after we get off of our knees, we must move to figure out ways to deconstruct this dehumanizing ideals that he is putting out there.
The meantime right now, Jonathan, is when we get on a knee, and if so, what does it really mean as an act of defiance?
Well, I think the big issue that we have to be concerned about right now is the whitewashing of the issue. And whitewashing very specifically is having white characters play even black characters in the Bible, such as a Charleston Heston playing Moses, someone playing Cleopatra. These are African people. And now we're seeing the issue being whitewashed, that the protest and the righteous indignity that Mr. Kaepernick was trying to address was the racist lyrics by Francis Scott, written in 1814, in the second stanza of the Star-Spangled Banner, a song that was focused on sex and drinking at the war.
Explain that.
Well, Francis Scott, when he talked about there was no refuge and no place which a slave could go that they would not be captured and killed, is in the second part. He was conscious enough to make that an issue, to say these lyrics are racist.
That is a part of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Correct.
That's never sung.
That's never sung. So he read the entire banner. And then the second part of which he says all these people getting killed by government forces, the police, the strangulation in New York, the child in Cleveland, Philando Castile and other places. This is the issue. Now when the owners come out, I don't know if they were trying to replicate Reverend Martin Luther King and yourself locking arms, but these owners have very little or nothing in common with the players locking arms, as if they are, I was just expecting them to break out into "We Shall Overcome." So now they want to whitewash it and divert it and say this is about unity. No, it's about justice. It's about racial equality. And so I think we need to stay focused on what was the original part, and it's about racial. Now, we don't need to have people appropriate our pain and try to misguide the conversation. Unity around what?
If you're ready, I want to also jump in, is that today African Americans are #1 in unemployment, #1 in poverty, #1 in foreclosed homes, #1 in targeted by banks for subprime lending and schemes. And the degradation of black people is what Kaepernick was talking about. That's been lost. Can that be regained?
Well, see, first of all, those are issues that have not been addressed in the protest either. And I think Jonathan, you hit part of it. I think everybody hit certain aspects of what we're talking about here. Because when the owners came out, I was surprised. Not because I think they were protecting their own self-interest. They weren't talking about social justice. They weren't talking about advancing people at this point. I mean, if they were, Colin would be a quarterback in the NFL today. He's still rated one of the top, within the top 15, so why hasn't he been hired? It's as easy as that. So when we look at the unemployment rates, when we look at the issues on education, when we look at the problems in our communities, it all relates to who's got the money and how is it being distributed to the people in our communities. And we have to stand up and say the money has to go into our communities, and these I mean, the Chicago Bears I just recently saw are worth $3 billion. That's with a B. I mean, where's the money going back into our communities from that? And who's giving it back? And I don't see it happening.
Evan, as a writer, the question becomes, the issue is the flag or not the flag. There's a national conversation about breast cancer, for example, the NFL sponsors. Would they ever sponsor a national conference, a focus on racial injustice, since 80% of the players are African American?
Well, you know, it's always uncomfortable for people to talk about race when it doesn't really affect the day-to-day life. Us here, everyone in this panel had no problem talking, and the crowd had no problem talking about race. But when you see owners and sports writers who've basically all lives mattered, Colin's message and the protest and stuff like that, you're saying that they don't want to talk about it. They want to push it to the side, like they're trying to tell you, oh, what they're saying is not important. Let's talk about this.
Well, Clyde, his point was that Trayvon was killed and the killer walked away. Diallo killed in New York, police walked away. The young man in Fruitvale in Oakland Hill, killers walked away. Rodney King beaten, the beaters walked away. Any nail to say this is unjust. That has been lost in the scheme of things, Clyde.
Yeah,
Clyde?
Well, one thing that I'd like to say, and I had to laugh in a way, the fastest way to get in a fight in the black community was talk about somebody's mama. With no deference to anybody else on this stage. I know that was a short enough fight right there. Well, you know, in 1980, I refer back when Carter boycotted the Olympics. He did not boycott the Winter Olympics. He boycotted the Summer Olympics. Okay, Colin Kaepernick, like I said, has been the lightning rod. If you remember when Pittsburgh stood in the, when Villanueva stood in the hallway and put his hand over his heart, the next day his jersey went up to #1 on the, in the NFL in terms of sales. Lost in that was, prior to that, the year before, Kaepernick's jersey was #1. One of my favorite quotes of all time: "There are lies, there are damn lies, and then there are statistics." You can make the numbers point out any way you want to, but this young man, at great personal loss to himself, has spearheaded a movement that has caused people to become aware. And once you become aware of the issue, once you realize that this man has lost millions, because we are a litigious society and we are a money-orientated society. And these NFL players have, it's going to be interesting to find out how the basketball players join in the fray.
Well, you know, when Stephon Curry and the Warriors were disinvited to the White House, which they didn't intend to attend, and LeBron stood with them, that's already moving in that direction. Now, Dana, that we've seen last week's display, the owners are shaking in their boots. What might the players do tomorrow?
Well, I think it'll be more of the same, and probably even more so. I think clearly more attention will be given to it. But as we're going back to the litigious society, one of the things that most people don't know is that Donald Trump sued the NFL years ago for $3 billion. He was awarded $3.54.
What happened?
It was, you know, it was infringement, and it was all these other things that were involved in his lawsuit, but he was only given $3. One thing I think I've learned in his 200+ days in office is that the man has a hard time letting go of a grudge. So a lot of this it has nothing to do with the games. It has nothing to do with anything. This man has used his platform to get his personal kicks
But to discuss him, Jonathan, is that itself not the diversion? The issue has to do with you look at the abandoned urban America looking like a donut hole among suburbs. Look at the plight of blacks and land and jobs and the like. The conversation about racial justice has gotten lost reacting to Trump's tweets.
Well, and I think that the conversation was inevitable. There's a linear line of thinking that the president is doing. When he first talks about building the wall, then he talks about the immigrant ban, then he goes on to talk about the children of immigrants in DACA, then his general disrespect for women in general, him talking about the president, about the mayor of San Juan in Puerto Rico. He can't stand to have any woman talk back to him. If you want to know how thin-skinned he truly is, it wasn't just about Puerto Rico, it was about a woman talking back to him. His mentality went back to the casino and the nightclub.
What happened in Puerto Rico? What did she say?
Well, she went on to say, we are dying, we need help. And he goes on to talk about the massive debt that Puerto Rico has and that they want everybody to do something for him. But add that back to our point on Colin Kaepernick, to call a black man whose mother is white, whose father is African American, a son of a bitch. He is talking about the fears of a mongrel, of a half black, half white. He's going all the way back. He knows something that is more valuable in America in politics than bitcoins, capital, gold, contributions, platinum, to talk about race and to specifically talk about the African American industry of powerful, rich, handsome, wealthy young men in basketball and in football. He's not going to do it for NASCAR. He's not going to do it for hockey. He's not going to do it for baseball. He's not going to do it for golf. He now hit his nuclear option to attack young African American men.
Well, because I see you smiling on this point. I'm concerned that the issue of racial injustice undermine the right to vote. It's so fundamental to hold the Russian debate. Things of substance are being lost. And this, how do we regain the conversation that Kaepernick was trying to have when he bent on one knee and would not get up?
I think, first of all, it happens in moments like this, where you have someone like yourself who is twice my age, making room for dialogue with those that are older than I. And I think it's a both and in this season. I think that our generation has the zeal, we have the creativity, we have the tools to say something that can go across the world. But I think we still need to keep our roots deep into the wisdom of those who have fought these giants before. The giants that you fought 50 years ago, 60 years ago never died. They just changed clothes. White supremacy is still white supremacy. We still don't have access to capital. We still don't have access to jobs. We still don't have quality education. We still don't have neighborhoods where we are free and cops are not messing with us. And so at the end of the day, the giants never died. They just changed clothes. But one thing that you did, and those in your generation did, you put a black eye on that giant. You shake, rattled, and made that giant think twice about fighting us. And so what we need to do, again, is not move you out the room, not move those who are in your generation out the room, but let's figure out how do we stay in a room together to learn together. Give us your wisdom, we'll tweet your wisdom. Give us your insight so we can see what you see. It's a both and to fight this giant, not an either or.
Dana, why are these athletes now moving and they move so slow towards supporting Kaepernick?
Well, they're moving slowly because there's a lot of money involved. And part of that problem comes from the family. And let me explain. When we have our kids and we start throwing little balls in the crib, because he's going to be the next best player, we give them special permission in school where they don't have to finish their assignments on time. We do all these different things. And then when mama's son gets drafted, she's expecting a house, a new car, the cousin, the guy who I play one-on-one with on the playground who thinks he owns part of my contract because he helped me perfect my jump shot and he wants special stuff too. There's a lot of money involved. So it's not just, we go to work and it's like...
Is this why the athletes are moving relatively slow?
Absolutely, because it's one thing, if we quit our job, we might have, okay, I got family at home, but they got 25 people tied in to this contract. So it's a lot more people, it's a lot bigger piece of the pie that we're talking about. It's not a $100,000 job. They're getting paid $100,000 for half of the game. So it's a lot more at stake. So it makes you think about it, but it's real hard to just say, I'm not gonna do it.
Now that they've broken the yoke of the bondage, so to speak, and kind of moved en masse, what impact you think will have, Ed?
I think it's going to have a significant impact because I think that I think the way you frame the question is exactly right. One of the things that was happening here, one of the things about specifically picking on Colin Kaepernick and using these terms was not just to stop the debate or the discussion about police violence and police murders. It was to try to stop conversations around voting rights and health care for women. It is to marginalize anybody who opposes Donald Trump, and I suppose I would say his agenda if we could figure out what it is. So the fact of the matter is that I think what we're seeing is almost a perfect storm where just as people could have been letting up from the post-election, post-inauguration, post-Muslim ban kind of protest, I think you're going to see more people step up. Because I think, it's one of the things that you've heard here is that seeing these images of athletes, of people that you revere, engaging in the protest, and it not being a single person who you can minimize, I think that's just going to encourage more people to be out and to be protesting on a whole host of issues, including police violence.
Reverend, one of the things that years ago, because I started my program 26 years ago, one of the things that I came to you and talked to you about was when it was tough, because I was trying to educate athletes, and some of them resisted it. And now, fast forward 26 years, a lot of them said, Dana, if I had just listened to you all those years ago, I wouldn't be in some of the trouble that I'm in. But when I was hitting a wall because I couldn't understand why they weren't embracing it, and I came to you and I said, how did you and Dr. King hold on? Because some people were okay with riding on the back of the bus. They could at least get on the bus. So they were okay with it, and they thought that it was a resistance that may have been getting in the way of their little bit of progress. You told me we kept going because it was the right thing to do. Those words from you have kept me motivated for the remainder of the time that I've been working. Because when I think about quitting, I remember that it's the right thing to do. So when the athletes are protesting, and I do fully expect them to more get on board, to speak out more, because it's the right thing to do.
But feel ready, they pay a big price. When Jesse Owens did stand up, came home, I was sharing with earlier today, the iconic picture is Jesse Owens crossing the finish line and Hitler getting up, walking away, and didn't shake his hand. So I asked Mr. Owens, I said, Jesse, why, how did you get upset when Hitler didn't shake your hand? He said, I came back home and Roosevelt didn't shake my hand either. Ooh. But he stood up. When Julius beat Max Mellon, he stood up and hired all black infrastructure. And then after Jack Robinson broke in, Jack Robinson also would not stand for the flag either. It's in his book, because he thought it was degrading. Now these athletes have broken out of this box they've been in. Can they take the heat that we're coming from? For example, some players' parents, a guy from Detroit who his dad lost his contract last week. The heat's coming back this way already.
Well, I think there's a lot of issues that are all encompassed in what you were just saying. And I think what we were just talking about too, because again, I think the message somehow has gotten lost. Why Colin is not employed right now, somebody better ask the owners as they step out into the field and join their players. That's the key question that we should be asking.
Being the lawyer you are, for example, if Colin decided I had the right qualifications to play and the owners colluded and denied me the right to work, could he make a case?
Well, I think he does have a case at this point. Except some
a legal case.
I did sue on behalf of one of the employees, Major League Baseball team, and my neighbor, who was a outstanding player in his day, said, "Well, but you got to get around the antitrust acts and what's governing what Congress has out there now," and it's absolutely true. I think while in normal sets of circumstances, he has a case, but with the way big sports has dominated and allowed Congress to pass laws to protect the owner's interest, it's not in the player's interest.
Ed, before I go back to Evan, I see you shaking your head. Here's a guy who is qualified to be a football player by the accepted standards, and he has been, owners have said, I will not hire him on my team. He would embarrass my crowd. So they've declared they have met and decided to lock him out.
Yeah.
He has the right to, and does he have any kind of legal standing?
I think as Mr. Fioretti said, I think the problem becomes the intersection between antitrust law, the collective bargaining agreement that the union has, and the way the NFL is structured. It is going to be incredibly difficult. But let's not confuse this issue whatsoever. The owners, as you have pointed out, have all said, who have tried him out, that he is talented enough to play in the league, but that they don't want, quote unquote, the distraction. Apparently getting arrested for beating your wife is not a distraction. Apparently, getting into a bar fight is not a distraction. Apparently none of these other things are a distraction, but standing up for social justice is a distraction. And that's the culture in sports that really needs to change.
Yeah, definitely piggybacking up with that point is, actually, when spoke to Colin when he was here for Know Your Rights camp, I was one of the only 2 journalists that I was allowed to attend, and I flat out asked him, do you want to play? I'll ask him all the questions, all the stuff that's been out there about him playing, what's he doing, is he working out, and stuff like that. And what he said about distraction, and those people don't realize, he won a team award while voted on by his teammates. Even the ones who didn't like his protest, they loved him as a teammate, and they voted for him voted for a team award. When I hear this distraction talk, and that's more stuff out there that's trying to get his name out there, put his name down, because when people don't realize with owners and teams and general managers and agents and stuff like that, when someone wants to put you in a box or say that guy's a troublemaker, that gets around the league. They don't have to look into it. They just have to just put that label on you, and that's it. Because like you said, it's guys who hit women, beat up teammates, said racial stuff, but they're going to be playing tomorrow.
Last week there was a Sports Illustrated front cover full of athletes, pictures, and it said Athletes United America Divided. And Stephen Curry wrote a text to them saying, why isn't Colin in the picture? Because it was his actions driven the whole conversation. Clyde?
Well, before I answer that, I also would like to say one of the biggest protests in Olympic history was 1972. That was applauded, where the United States refused to accept a silver medal. Fast forward, protests again.
What happened?
It was over a bad call against the Russian basketball team, where they felt that they were cheated. And the United States, I'm paraphrasing here, government or the Olympic body, they voted and said, we're not going to accept that medal. Now, that was the biggest protest to that particular time. That was applauded as a courageous act. Now, fast forward to Colin Kaepernick. This man is standing up for social injustice. He's not only male athletes, female athletes, anybody with a political consciousness got on board. And even those that didn't totally get on board had to go back and say, do your thing. We know you're right. We just can't support you in a certain way. But as a team, he unified, he did a lot, he did some subtle things out there that just went under the rug. Now, the interesting part is what a couple of panelists have said. How is this going to go on? Because lost in all that, he's done. He has become what I call the Kurt Flood of sports.
I get the impression they're still trying to get him back, and the players are still demanding that even Tom Brady says he should be able to play.
Everybody is trying to get him back, but and I have to yield to somebody, this is your area of expertise, or your area of expertise. You know, rules are so innocuous that you have to go something to be, they didn't get to be billionaires by accident. All right, so you have to go something to prove collusion and the other things that have like spearheaded this thing to keep him out. Right now, if you look at the NFL statistics, as far as the quarterbacks is concerned, he probably would be rated in the top 10.
Let me ask you a question, Jonathan, because it was, I was saying with the commissioner at the Super Bowl game with you several years ago. He looked out and we saw the guys, I've been doing exercise and all the television was covering them. He said, well, and next year, 2/3 of them will not be back. The turnover in the NFL, the guys are very expendable, right? Like a 4-year career at the most.
Usually when you can go and start to get that pension, they're looking for the new set so they can cut their losses.
So, John, so you get $20 million, half that goes to government, and then half of that goes to the first wife. And then pay taxes, and then Mama and Nene and them. These guys are really afraid.
Well, yes, and let's talk about, of the 4 major sports, just by the numbers quickly, baseball, basketball, football, and they consider the National Hockey League, that there are 32 teams in the NFL. Only one is publicly owned, that's the Green Bay Packers. So it's 1,900 players in the NFL, and every year, 1/3 of them wash out. Over 600 of these men will wash out. Their average career is 3.5 years. After 5 years, you get to have a pension. It has the shortest life expectancy of any athlete on planet Earth. They start dying off in their mid-50s. The CTE, the brain trauma, is very well known and documented. The average team is worth about $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion. Donald Trump knows this very well because he had a team, tried to start a league when he had hired Herschel Walker and so forth. But moving on, so it's a very wealthy group of people where they have absolutely colluded. And if people really understood this, and Donald Trump understands the stadium finance and the vulnerability of the team owners. If people understood that the public finances these stadiums in large part, and you can't afford to go to the stadium that your tax dollars has already paid for, this has the owners in a very peculiar situation. The second part is when you tell a team you're capped at $120 million salary, but you've got $200 million in revenue guaranteed you by being a part of this monopoly on public properties, tying up all of the sponsorship, the owners, those sitting in the booth, the owners are going to make $80 million and they have to split $120 million with another 53 players that have a shortened life expectancy. Donald Trump understands that math. And so therefore he hit the racial nuclear option and he's brought them into his fight. And now he's changed the narrative from social justice and the racist lyrics. You shouldn't have to go to a workplace and hear racist lyrics. If you had to live under Pol Pot in Asia, if you had to live under Hitler in Germany, or if you had to live under the Confederates in the United States of America, you should not have to listen to those lyrics and have to recite them talking about the national anthem. And so I think in conclusion, now that he's stirred up this hornet's nest, and what I mean by hornet's nest is it's disinformation, misinformation. I believe he's going to start taking some of the attendance out of the top rung of those stadiums where the people can barely afford the seats, because now he's going to turn the anger and animosity towards those young, rich, powerful, handsome, wealthy men that people had in their gut that had resentment towards.
Well, you guys you guys have not talked very much about Trump's track record. He's a track star running from the draft. Ran from the draft 7 times, never got caught.
Okay, you want to make it a sports question.
On the serious side, what affects me is that the John talked about the financing. You would think these guys wrote a check out their pocket and built them a stadium, but the pension monies and the tax abatement, the hotel abatement, and the city land, these guys come in as paltry millionaires and become billionaires the next day. Let's discuss something as basic as, since you have 32 all-white plantation owners, what about that? They're going to expand the league. What about if 2 or 3 black ownerships was the next level of the demand? I'm saying, let's go from arguing about reaction to what the demands ought to be. One, the right to work without being boycotted. Right now, the reason why we should boycott the league is because the league is boycotting him. Second is the workers' right to work, as it were. But the third is issue of ownership.
Reverend, let me add a quick thing to that. When you're talking about finance, one of the things that most people don't know is that professional athletes and entertainers pay state tax in every state where they play. Every state. So, like for me, I live in Chicago. If I work here in Illinois and I go and I speak in Texas, or let's just say I go speak in California, I don't pay California tax on the money that I generate there. I'm an Illinois resident, and that's where I pay my taxes. But if you play professional sports, so when the Bulls go play the Lakers, Clippers, Kings, and Golden State, they're paying 4 installments of their salary, whatever they generated in California, they're leaving that in California. So there's a lot more at stake, a lot more money being generated by these athletes that most people don't even take into consideration. And when I started a petition years ago to try to get, because it didn't start until 1979, which was when sports started getting a tan. And so then we don't start asking questions about taxes and all those kind of things. So when someone said, you got to pay this tax, you just start paying it.
Let me do a whip around right fast. We have about 5 minutes to go. Start with you, Fury. What should be next as you look at the expanding protests? Should there be a protest tomorrow, number one? And if so, what should be next?
Well, I think the protest should be continued, but at what level? And the question gets to be, again, the message is starting to get lost here on what they're doing. And I think in some ways, the problem that we've overlooked, I had at one point when I was the alderman more schools in my ward than any other ward in the city of Chicago. I had grade schools and high schools. Good schools from Whitney Young, Jones, all the way to Crane. And I'm not saying the levels were disparate in terms of educational graduation, but it was. But I would always ask the younger kids, what did they want to be, especially the first graders, second graders. What was amazing, Reverend, was that they wanted to be doctors, scientists, engineers. Somehow about 4th or 5th grade, those same students all of a sudden wanted to be professional football players or basketball players, where, as Jonathan just explained, that lifespan is very short. I think even on the basketball players, it's 2 years. So we've got to reconfigure the discussion to make sure our younger folks elevate themselves because of education.
Kind of spin around here. Evan, Clive, what next?
Well, it's always easy to be objective about somebody else's money. And I think what the panelists said is that there's so many other extenuating factors that go into something. If you take somebody that hasn't had anything, and all of a sudden they are now accountable, you were very modest when you said 100. You know, when they now are responsible for almost a mini family or families, then all of a sudden a lightning rod like this hits. They have to reassess, do I want to be Colin Kaepernick? Do I want to set myself out there as one of the vanguards of this movement at this personal cost?
And what next? What next?
What I think there will be protests tomorrow. I think there need to be a lot more protests around these social issues. And I think when there are marches, what I'd like to see some of these professional athletes not taking a knee on Sunday, but leading the march on Saturday. I think that would bring more people and bring more attention to the issues and actually raise awareness about what they want.
Yeah, piggyback on you were saying, once you start looking into systemic issues, that's when we'll see some of these guys back away from playing a sport like football. And we all seen that show Second Chance U, and we've seen Survivor's Remorse, and like that show, you see a player who's taking care of his whole family, his economic situation. Most people don't realize that show is based off the life of LeBron James.
Now that the demand is out there, what should the next demand level be? Dana, what next?
Gosh, you know, is there just one demand? You know what I mean? You know, I really can't say what can be like the one demand. Is there one thing?
I think, Reverend, once we get off our knees, I think that we need to use this moment to revive and baptize in black culture, in black history, teaching a whole generation of what was. And if they don't like us, and if they don't want us to play, build our own league. Ice Cube did it. Why can't we have our own football league?
Well, that's another question. Go on.
A solution that I would have is that the Nobel laureates ought to be called together, that are the poets, and the second stanza ought to be rewritten of the Star-Spangled Banner, so people that are working, that have to sing this anthem, should not have to sing racist lyrics. Should be the first demand.
You know what I would like to see? I'd like to see fewer athletes, after the game is over on Monday, still have a job. After it's done, because I get them after they're done playing and they have no clue. So use this as a platform to go on to something better.
Well, it's that there are now 32 teams, all owned by white males who got them for various schemes. The next 2 or 3 teams should be owned by blacks. That could be a demand, right?
Absolutely.
Players who express First Amendment rights should not be punished. What we didn't say today is the silence of the Players Association. There's an eerie silence by the Players Association, the Players Union. Why are they so silent quickly?
Because they're getting paid. They are getting bankrolled by the league. Years ago, the NBA Players Association's rent for the office space they had in New York was being paid for by the league.
Is that true? Is that true now?
Now, since that time, they've moved to Chicago. They're still being subsidized quite a bit. So they're not being paid fully, and now there's a clause in the contracts that requires the players to donate into the Players Association. But before, when it was a voluntary thing, it wasn't happening. So they have too much money.
I know we're running out of time. Why is the Players Association, the union, so silent?
Well, once again, I use that word ditto with what you just said. It's, you know, you're talking about the haves and the have-nots here. So if your life depends on, and you can kind of go into
the union protects you from being the one guy. It becomes the group. So you're less vulnerable to the group.
Well, yes, you know, it's kind of hard if you're just really not into all the little nuances that go into how the money is dispersed in sports. Just like when you said about the league. The lack of minority investors, or the lack of coaches, or the lack of whatever. It's the good old boys club. Until they break down the fabric of that and make it all, they have a rule right now, what they call it, the Rooney Rule. Okay, now what good has that Rooney Rule done in terms of ownership? You do have everybody's getting an interview, but okay, now we have to go to the next step. We almost have to mandate us or an affirmative action away in for these guys to get something.
The Rooney Rule was the Rainbow Push Rule. We were picketing them, and because they had no black coaches,
Exactly.
And they reacted by, he recommended that before another one is hired, they include a black. Well, that's really our rule.
But Reverend, what? I stand accused. I apologize. Yeah. But what do you?
And because the Bears had Lovey had a 10-6 record, they won 10 games in 5 years, and let him go. So go on. I had to let that one out.
But think about it. What has the Rooney Rule actually done? You have what, 3 black coaches in the league right now, and not one of those coaches could hire Colin Kaepernick. So how much power? I know if I was a coach and I had an autonomous power to do certain things, as most coaches do, then Colin Kaepernick would be on my team. Just on your common sense.
But athletically, if you were coaching in Pittsburgh, would you sit Roethlisberger to hire Colin? Would that not tap your team? There's things other than race to consider.
That's kind of an ambiguous question right there. You know,
given the fact that Roethlisberger gets hurt every year, I'd certainly have Kaepernick as a backup.
Yeah, you also saw what happened with the Baltimore Ravens, who have a black general manager who wanted to sign Kaepernick, but the owner said, "Nah, we're not doing that." So that's kind of like one of the steps up.
Hugh Jackson at Cleveland wanted to bring him in. That was Knicks. I mean, you know, there were people that realized that this man can play. Now, the thing that Colin Kaepernick is, you can when I get back to the statistical part of this, you can always use a statistic to point out what a person can't do, or you can augment that and say what a person can do. Now, when Kaepernick was running out of the pocket, freelance, and doing things of that nature, that's undisciplined. That's a lack of being a pocket quarterbacking skills. Now, when someone else does it, that's ability to extend a play.
Well,
so
you're a Chicago Bear fan. Don't y'all need a quarterback?
Well, Reverend, back to this other question about Ben Roethlisberger over Colin. The reason why I would say yes is because 1st and 10 for a white player is a different 1st and 10 for a black player. Here it is, Ben got caught with 2 cases of sexual assault with a woman, and they let him back twice, and they forgave him twice, and the commissioner forgave him. But here it is, a man who has no charges, did not do anything wrong. His 1st and 10 really is a 1st and 20. So I think that, yeah, I will hire Colin over the simple fact that he broke no laws. He's still a good athlete. He can still play better than half of them. And I think that it's a statement that you say that this is a good guy of character in class. So, yeah.
Close, Jonathan.
Well, my last point being is that I think the owners, knowing that these men have an 80% chance of being divorced after year 5, once their last game is over, that they know these are the most brutal work conditions, and they are guilty of antitrust behavior. And Mr. Trump now is using this as a political ploy. He's got the FBI on him. He's got Manafort under investigation. He's got emails that haven't been on a server. He's had a lackluster response going into Puerto Rico. He can see things are circling the wagon on him and getting hot. So now he's engaged this group of wealthy men that he feels probably didn't put pressure on the senators that could have to give him the health care vote that he needed, and he's playing lose, so he's putting pain on them. He's a very vindictive man, and calling Mr. Kaepernick's mother that name, he knows how racially charged that is, to call all of these men out on that. And guess what? But here's the good news. In the spirit of Bill Russell, who in 1960s went to the March on Washington, in the spirit of Bill Russell, that also boycotted games because of Jim Crow laws having to go to certain places. I am so excited that there's a new generation of men that are asserting themselves, that aren't boys, that are men, and there's no going back now. They've got to stay on the field and go forward.
Let me say, I'm going to bring on our sister to sing us a song. My concern is that we used to sing a song called Keep Your Eyes on the Prize, Hold On, Hold On. The real issue is that blacks are more likely not to make it to age 30, to die. Say blacks, number one. unemployment. Number one, lack of access to lending. Number one, targeted by banks, predatory lending. Number one, in jail. Number one, in prison. The state of Black America is the agenda. Put your hands together. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. I want you to sing something before we go. Tell them your name and what you're getting ready to do.
My name is Colin Lewis, and I'm about to speak. Today, I will recite for you an adaptation of the I Am Somebody speech by the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, Sr. I am somebody. I may be poor, but my riches will come. I am somebody. I may have made a mistake, but God forgives and redeems the time. I am somebody. I may be young, but I am being prepared for great things. I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but my business is just over the horizon. I am somebody. I may be old and in need of a little help, but I am somebody. My clothes are different, my face is different, my hair is different, but God didn't make a mistake when He created me. I am somebody. I am black, brown, white, but we are all precious in God's sight. Therefore, I must be respected, protected, never rejected. I am somebody. I am God's child.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together. I am somebody.
Well, some say my future not that bright.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
Some say I'm useless, unholy, and I'm not living right. But at the beginning of the day, I look in the mirror and say, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Maybe down, not destroyed, empty but not void. I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Maybe down and pushed away, but at the end of the day, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody.
I am.
Yeah, maybe down but not destroyed, empty but not void, 'cause I am somebody. Oh, hey.
You are watching us online across the world today. Support our effort as we fight for jobs and justice and clarity, as we stand for Colin Kaepernick, as we fight for education, as we fight for schools over jails, and future, say we fight for futures over funerals, education, not incarceration, life, not death. We go forward by hope, never backwards by fear. We need your support. Everybody matters. Everybody matters. Everybody is somebody. Put your hands together. It's collection time. Some of you who are not members of the organization, I want you to join Rainbow Push today. Just $35 you get to join allows us to sustain our work. Some, of course, already remember you can give more than that. If you're not a member, you'd like to join Rainbow Push, raise your hand. You'd like to join Push, raise your hand. You would like to join. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Give this baby another big hand. If you will sacrifice today, you'll sacrifice and give at least $100, please stand. You'll sacrifice, you'll give at least $100, stand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You'll give at least $100 since you're so young and so able, so fast, so smart. You'll give at least $100, please stand. Thank you so much. We need your support. We need your support. Reverend Dr. Patterson.
These are from contractors.
From the contractors, thank you very much. Sarah Riggins from the choir, thank you very much. Some of you might want to put your money on the swipe machine. You give at least $100. Graham Brady, $100. Thank you very much, Brother Brady. I'm waiting to hear Will's name and Jonathan's name. You give at least $100. Please stand. At least $100. A&T's homecoming next weekend. A&T's homecoming next weekend. Graham Brady, thank you, Graham, $100. You'll give at least $100 wherever you are. Bonita has a lot of money. You'll give at least $50. You give at least $50. We need to invest in our struggle. Invest in our struggle. You'll contribute at least $50. Invest in our struggle.
I text the game, bro.
Feel ready? I know you're not broke. Give me some money. Linda Lawrence.
$50. Lawrence and Judge Anthony come on and say, went to Mauritania together.
Linda Lawrence went to Mauritania. Judge went to Mauritania. Y'all come up here. You give at least $50. Lily, thank you. Sister, where's Lily? Sanders. Thank you, darling. Here where you are, $50. Thank you very much, my friends. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Brother Johnny Wright, $100. Thank you, Johnny. You give at least $25. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. Theresa Hill, $50. Thank you, Theresa. You'll give at least $25. We need your support to sustain our work. Thank you so much. Mayon, what night does the choir rehearse? What night does the choir rehearse? What time? If you'd like to join our Rainbow Push Choir, I want you to stand. We rehearse on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock. Got some ideas, Derek? We'll talk to you about that, all right? If you've not yet given, please say. If you've not yet given, please stand. Give as you are blessed to give. If you've not yet given, please stand. If you've not yet given, please stand.
Every superstition writings on the wall. Every superstition ladder's about to fall.
You've not yet stood up.
13-month-old baby, yeah. Broken looking glass. 7 years of bad luck, the good things in the past. Oh, when you believe in things that you don't understand, you just may suffer, yeah. Oh, superstition ain't the way, yeah. Oh, no. Very superstition, nothing more to say. Bring me out my problems now. Do all that you can. Just keep me in a daydream. Keep me living strong. You don't wanna save me, no. Say there's a song. Listen now. When you believe in things that you may not understand, you may just suffer. Oh, superstition ain't the way. Yeah, yeah.
Y'all put your hands together. Let's see if we can do this, fellas.
There is a position writing on the wall. There is a position let us about to fall. 13-month-old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck. 50 in the past. Oh, you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer.
Let's see if we can take it right here. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Listen.
Looking back on when I was a little nappy-headed boy. Well, although then my only worry was for Christmas what would be my toy. Yet, even though we sometimes
would not get a thing,
yeah,
we would be happy with the joy the day would bring.
Sneaking out the back.
Oh yeah.
Even with those kind of friends of mine.
What you said?
Oh, sneaking out the back door. Though the mama told me not to go outside. Yeah.
Yes, she did.
Listen. Trying to pass the brain out, water to your eyes. Thinking that may stop her from whooping your behind. I wish those days would. I wish those days would come back with smoke. I did those days. Yeah. But I have to go, cause I love them so.
See you next week. God bless you.
Here we go, here we go.
You be my soul of mud and fire, beginning to be my one desire. You're getting to be all that matters to me. Well, let me tell you, girl, I hope and pray each day I live a little more love I have to give, a little more love that's devoted and true. 'Cause